Episode of ADEX, I will take this forward and hand it over to Sapna to introduce the personality who's going to be interacting with us. Over to you, Sapna.
Thanks, Mr. Yadav, for sharing that brief on various Havas initiatives, including this ADEX series that we have today, and also setting the tone of the day. Yes, and yes, let's unveil who is the star of the day. So joining us is architect Dikshu Kukreja, Managing Principal Architect, Kukreja Architects, which is ranked amongst the top 100 architectural firms in the world and top 5 in Asia. Before I hand it over to Mr. Kukreja, let me give a brief introduction of architect Dikshu Kukreja. Architect Dikshu Kukreja has worked in India, France, and USA and has lectured and taught at institutions both in India and abroad. He is member governing body Sushant School of Art and Architecture. He was selected as cultural ambassador by Government of Finland and elected as the youngest president of Harvard Club of India and is the first architect to achieve this distinction. Also, his firm CP Kukreja Architects has achieved the unique distinction of being the first design firm in India to have acquired a US-based design practice specializing in sustainability. His firm has designed many greenfields as well as heritage and conservation buildings, and most recently, the Indian Pavilion at Expo 2020 Dubai that has been recognized as one of the most iconic pavilion by the American Institute of Architects. Architect Kukreja, thanks for being here with us today, and I hand it over to you now.
Well, thank you so much. I'm extremely pleased to be here, a part of ADEX series, which certainly promises to and has the potential of being able to engage with the design community and gives a platform for designers to share their ideas, thoughts, and convictions with people in general. And hopefully it's an active engagement where we are able to talk about different aspects of design. So if we can have the presentation on screen, I'm happy to share that with all of you today. So yes, today I'm pleased to be discussing a subject which I think affects each one of us. And I would even say that it goes beyond the realm of design to really influence our lives in each and every aspect. This is about something that we are hearing increasingly day by day, and that's climate change. Now, when we hear climate change, one of the thoughts that comes to mind for many people is that this seems to be an issue which is being blown out of proportion by probably some activists who want some attention. And why should we be so bothered about it? We are going about our daily lives. Yes, our daily lives can have challenges, but what is such a big deal about it? Well, I think today's conversation that I want to have is about really it's time to fix the misgivings of what we believe is climate change. So just a few images, probably they might ring a bell about the situation that is around us. We are talking today about social distancing, and during this pandemic, there's talk about having some distance between people. But isn't this what most of our cities across the country, and I would say across the world, tend to look like? Cities which have burgeoning population and people jostling for every inch of space that is around them. We are also faced with situations where we talk about breathing fresh air, but then this is what is the look and feel of our cities, where we can barely see a few meters ahead of us, because that's the quality of air which we happen to be breathing. And this is how we are now beginning to recognize each other, because this is becoming part of our lives, where we are now beginning to hide our faces. And maybe we need to really hide our faces, because what we have done to our planet deserves only a sense of embarrassment and shame. So this is what we have ended up being, where we are walking around and greeting each other with our faces covered. We always have talked for time immemorial about the celebration of public space, about how people in cities can come together, and it's a confluence of ideas, thoughts, and the diversity that cities is able to attract amongst people. But where is the public space today when this is what our public spaces have started looking like, where pedestrians have completely been taken over by different modes of transport, which, to say the least, is not only polluting, but also highly chaotic and an eyesore. And if you think this image here is about suddenly some angels appearing in the clouds who are there to shower blessings on all of us, unfortunately, that's far from true. And this happens to be the state of our rivers. For example, this is Yamuna River flowing through Delhi, and that's what our rivers look like with the kind of pollution that has come up. So not only the air quality here you can see for yourselves, there is no blue sky, but also, unfortunately, there's no blue water, and all you see is pollution and froth. So that's what has happened to our river bodies. And when we look at images like this, some might mistake this for a streak of light, which is a highway probably going through a nice forest, and these could be neon lights. But unfortunately, it is not a cityscape, but it's a forestscape which is being pulled down and destroyed through the ravaging forest fires that are happening across the globe. As we speak, one region or the other in the world is erupting in these kind of forest fires, where hundreds and thousands of trees are destroyed, and also the flora and fauna that goes along continues to be destroyed. And if this is not climate change, is this climate change, where we are really yearning for water, because water is what makes human beings survive. And when we yearn for water, this is what our cities start looking like when we are blessed with a few showers. And when we are not blessed with a few showers, then our cities or our land starts looking like this. And droughts and famines are beginning to come back again to haunt human civilization. We thought that with modernism, we had been able to overcome these terrible tragedies which used to happen through droughts and famines, but they are again happening because this is what we are doing to our planet. So again, for those of us who are skeptical and relegate people who are concerned about the climate, we relegate them to mere activists who are, sort of screaming for attention. I think the images that I've shared with you probably start telling a different facet of what climate change is about. So if that is what is happening to our planet as we speak, then how do we go about fixing these misgivings, as I call them, which have resulted in climate change? And before the dust settles on these global conferences like the COP26, which just happened in Glasgow, I think it's a matter which each one of us needs to reflect upon and think about what we need to do. And I personally believe that the time has come, because we've damaged this planet enough, and the sense of alarm and emergency that we have reached to deserves a very serious and careful attention. And what I believe is the solution is not in government leaders meeting in places like Glasgow or Kyoto or Paris and deciding the fate of what our future generations will get. But the time has come for each one of us to really swear to ourselves that we need to bring about changes which we can do. This is not anymore a problem of our neighbor or of another part of society or another part of our country. It is something which is affecting all of us. Sometimes we talk about, like I said, waterlogging and flooding happening in our cities. Sometimes we talk about the same cities which are flooded at one time of the year. We are saying they are running dry. The cities have no water, whether it's South Africa, Cape Town in South Africa, or Delhi, or many, many other cities. So I think we need to understand that we have to fix these problems at every individual and community level. And by that, I mean, we need to start revisiting or relooking at the kind of lifestyle that each one of us has and where we need to bring changes in it. And if we can, like they say, every drop counts in an ocean, the same way I think that every gesture of every individual on this planet is going to start making a difference. So this is not some kind of a social message. It is, but more importantly, I think it's an issue which I want every design fraternity member, every real estate fraternity member, and every citizen to understand and start really thinking hard about. So just to show you a couple of examples that what we are talking about, where we need to maybe change the built environment. And as an architect now, I'm sharing some examples with you that how these interventions or how our decisions or our work can start influencing and giving a new complexion to our cities. So here is an image of what you might have heard of, now popularly known as the High Line, which was really a series of rail tracks which were running through the city of New York. And this is how they looked like. Literally, I would say, ripping through civilization, cutting across buildings, completely obliterating public space, pedestrianized space, and had this kind of rail tracks, as I would call them, eyesores, or literally concrete noodles, which are running through the city. And this is what the city has transformed that space into. They have truly made it not only an environment-friendly green spine which runs through the city, but also a marvelous public space where we all know that New York City doesn't have too much greenery, but here they've been able to really bring in the greenery as well into the heart of Manhattan. Another example, in Europe, there was a time, like the image of Yamuna River I showed you, that Thames River running through London was also frowned upon and looked at really more an eyesore and a source of pollution rather than an asset to the city. But with a sense of commitment, a vision for the city, a vision for its citizens, I think they have been able to transform it rather successfully, again by creating, not only cleaning that, but controlling the water there, but also being able to rejuvenate the entire city by introducing so much celebratory public space. Closer home, I think it would be worthwhile to share a few examples of what we at CP Kukreja Architects have been trying to do in terms of our design approach to projects, with a belief that hopefully what we create is not just about look of buildings, but also the feel of buildings. And very importantly, that whatever we are creating as built environment is also being able to contribute to the natural environment or contribute to nature. So here are a few images of a project known as Gautam Buddha University. And in this project, what we see here is that the idea was of creating, this was 511 acres of arid land. And when I visited the site for the first time, I was quite taken aback to see that it was completely arid land with not even literally a tree growing on this flat piece of land. So how do we transform it into a meaningful space? And how do we bring in a sense of depth, a sense of belonging, a sense of purpose to this piece of land? So because this project is called Gautam Buddha University and has the desire to be able to imbibe certain principles of what Lord Buddha preached or shared, we thought that it is about giving, it's about a sense of belonging, it's about simplicity, and it's about nature and environment. But the first thing that comes to anybody's mind when you think of Lord Buddha is Lord Buddha sitting in his meditation posture. So what you see here is, or the image on the left, that where Lord Buddha's head is, we placed the library building. Where his body is, we place those 8 buildings in a circular fashion, which are also reflecting the eightfold path of Buddhism and are the academic or the core of the university. And at his feet, where he sits cross-legged, we have placed the administration building, which is meant to serve a university. So that's how the inspiration came up. And this is what the shape of the overall land looks like. And what we felt was our responsibility was not just to create some fancy plan where you have buildings strewn across the site, but we felt we needed to do some important gestures for the community. So because there is an expressway which passes, as you see on the left of the screen, from Delhi to Agra, we decided to create an urban forest, because we thought if you have 500 acres of land, how do you make it more meaningful? So we created a 50 acres of urban forest, so that when you enter this kind of a tranquil environment of learning, you are able to leave the hustle bustle of the city and you pass through a forest and you've entered another world altogether. So that's how this planning was done. That's the image again, if you see, of Lord Buddha sitting in his meditation posture, and you see here how the library at the head, the academic schools at the body, and the feet is where the admin is. And then the rest of the campus has student housing for 5,000 students, which is on the upper part of the screen. And on the bottom right part of the screen are those clusters of faculty housing, which is for about 550 faculty. And in the middle, as a shared resource, are parks and play fields and other sports infrastructure. Excuse me. So the idea for us was not as much about buildings. Buildings certainly were important here, but it was about experience, it was about nature, it was about the natural landscape. So what we have done here is we created a large lake which also functions as a water reservoir. So rather than just having water being collected in different parts of the site and difficult to maintain, or worse, allowing water to go out into the city trunk lines or cause flooding, etc., we decided to conserve all that water and created this bowl, which becomes the heart of the campus. It becomes a center for confluence of students. So you see the two wings of the buildings on either side. These are colonnades which connect those different academic schools, and they allow students from different schools, whether it's management, law, humanities, sciences, etc., to come out of their buildings and be able to converse and interact with students from other disciplines. And that's what this hub becomes. And obviously it creates a difference in the microclimate of the campus, because when you have such a large water body and you have hot breeze blowing over it, that also starts cooling. And this is how this very tranquil lake, which reflects buildings, and in that sense, metaphorically, gives you that sense of reflection that Buddhism is about. We also created a series of gardens, meditative gardens, so that today's students have started becoming synonymous with stress. When I was a student, I thought student life was the most fun part, that people said was the fun period of our lives. And today, all students seem to be stressed. So here are beautiful, tranquil, meditative gardens where students are able to enjoy and reflect upon the beauties of the world and nature. This is a meditation center which has been created there. And the way the buildings were designed, now many academic buildings I have noticed in our country tend to become these mega teaching blocks, single monolithic buildings, and often then they are double loaded with hardly any natural light coming in or ventilation happening, natural ventilation. So here we've broken down those mega buildings into smaller buildings, as you see, 8 of them. Each has internal courtyards, so that students of that particular discipline can come and interact in those rather intimate courtyards. And then you have the lake and the greenery around the lake, as you see, and stepped terraces, stepped seating, etc., where students can interact between different disciplines. So this way, not only are we creating an environment for a university, but we are trying to create an environment which really enhances the overall environment of the city by bringing in a lot of these measures of nature, of landscape into the buildings. And here is another example of how, when we talk about climate change, when we talk about the carbon emissions, when we talk about needing to rely in our kind of harsh climate on artificial means of cooling, we have introduced so many measures of passive cooling. So as I always try to explain that, as architects, we have a great responsibility that we are creating a building envelope. Now, if we create a sensible building envelope, which is not going to allow too much heat to enter, then we have that much less heat to be cooled. or air or volume to be cooled, because we've not allowed so much of that building to get heated up. So passive cooling, I believe, is a very important measure, and it's not like we have invented it. We are only inspired by our own historical architecture, which abounds across the country, where you see these beautiful measures and the beautiful architectural element of jali. So this is what you see here. We've used jali, but we've not just used it in a traditional manner. We've used technology to hang jali from the top as if it's a curtain. And the design of the jali is also inspired in a new language. It's not about geometrical patterns, but it's inspired from the Buddhist text. So what Buddhist text is, we abstracted that text and we used that as patterns for the jali. This is the environment that has been created of the university, with a strong network of green spaces and water network to be able to conserve all that water on the site. Let me take you to another example. For those amongst us who might believe that, these low height sprawling campuses taking a lot of land is a luxury in cities and not very viable, I'm going to share a new example with you, which is about a very high density, high rise living, which is being introduced now in our city. So this is India's first transit oriented development project, which we are designing, TOD, which is for DDA along with NBCC. And this project is about creating a new language for our cities. So for us, it's important because whatever we design would be probably a model or a message of how do you create high density, lot of people in a small piece of land, and yet give them the values that we believe a natural environment should, or a good quality city should. So here what we have done is, it's a land area of over 80 acres, and it is in the heart of East Delhi in Karkarduma. You have 2 metro lines which cut through the site. And what we did here was that we have created, not just for this land area, but tried to give back to the entire city, just the way South Delhi or New Delhi has Lodi Garden and Nehru Park. East Delhi doesn't have those kind of public green spaces. So we decided to create a large 10 acres green park here, which would be sort of an oasis for the city of part of Delhi, which is East Delhi. And at the same time would be a space where people, not just in this TOD project, do people come and live, but it's about mixed use, where you not only live, but you work, and you have other commercial facilities, and you have even schools and hospitals, etc. But can we then look at a new way of doing this? Or is it just, the usual gridiron pattern, the way New York was done or the way Chandigarh was done? Or is there another different organic way of creating this kind of architecture? So this is the way we approach this part of the this project, where we said that, wherever the metro station is, people should be discouraged to use private transport or private cars. So as long as we make it convenient that where the metro station is, that becomes the hub. And then we start creating buildings around it through this circle of influence. And then within that circle of influence, we have these small nodes which take place. So working alongside IDOM master planners also from Spain, we created this kind of a new way of looking at a city, where you create different zones, different clusters, different courtyards. You have commercial activity happening on the lower floors, just the way our cities successfully did that, whether it was Shahjahanabad or old parts of Ahmedabad, Kolkata, or everywhere across our country. We had a great way of living, where you had shops at the bottom and you had houses above. And we have seemed to have forgotten that in that strategy after independence, where we started doing master plans, which I believe were very unimaginative, where one part of the city you lived, another part was a district center, and then you had to build roads to just keep traveling for long distances from commuting from one part of the city to another. Here you're able to create a thriving micro city in itself. And if you create these kind of nodes across the cities, and you have public transport conveniently connecting it, I think you are creating very livable, very vibrant communities. And like it just mentions here, also very intelligent skylines. So So it's not just about looking at buildings at daytime, but also at night. So buildings are 24/7. I'll just share one last project with you because it's special, and it's special in many ways. And I think what this project has done is very, very gratifying as far as I'm concerned, because many times as I've traveled across the world, I hear people say or remark that, we know that historically Indian architecture was supreme. It was, we've created architectural marvels, be it the Taj or Taj Mahal or Qutub Minar or many, many, many such fantastic monuments. But what has India created in the last 75 years? Or where is contemporary Indian architecture on the world map? And I'm happy that when we got this opportunity to design the India Pavilion at a stage which is a global stage, where you have 200 pavilions being built in one location, and you have the best of architecture of each country coming and expressing itself at that global stage, India also chose to create not only one of the largest pavilions there, but also a pavilion which would stay on once the Expo 2020 would get over. So there were many challenges to this project. And what we felt was that we wanted to resonate with the theme of the Expo. And the theme of the Expo is about sustainability, mobility, and it's also about opportunity. So that's what we set out to achieve in this project. And I'm really happy that not only has it been appreciated, but it's been globally recognized as one of the most iconic pavilions which has been designed at the World Expo. So this is what it looks like. The site that was allotted to the India Pavilion was at the far right corner of the screen in an area which was a zone which is called the Opportunity District, which you see here towards the bottom of the screen was the space given to the India Pavilion. So while most of the pavilions, their majority have rectangular, clean shaped sites, India Pavilion was amongst a very few which actually had an awkward shaped site, which was a trapezium, where the face towards the public was the smaller end of the trapezium, and this larger face that you're seeing is actually the back of the Expo. So also another challenge here was that not only is it a trapezium shaped site, but to add to the complexity, we were told that the triangle part that you see on the left screen is a site that would be taken away once the Expo is over. And then you will be left with this rectangle, which is where you need to design your permanent building, because India was choosing to make a building not just as a pavilion, but we wanted, the Indian government wanted to create the maximum FAR or FSI that is allowed, and the maximum height we could go to, because we had so much to display at this pavilion that the government did not want to lose out on any area just because of some kind of architectural form. So that's how the pavilion started coming about, and we felt that we need to create what India's diversity is about, what India's duality in a sense is about, that while we are known to the world for our monuments and our history and our legacy and our culture, but what we should also be known is for our modernity, and that India is a very, very progressive country. So we of course carried out a lot of these environmental principles of looking at how the building should be shaped and formed. And we realized when we did the shading analysis, etc., that we had actually very limited choice, because we only had that little rectangle we could build in. And within that little rectangle, with the built up area allowed, we really had to create a box. So how do we then look at orientation and solar angles and shading, etc., when really the client is demanding a functional box because they don't want to lose a square inch? So in that situation, what we felt was that let us also adopt the theme of the Expo, which is about mobility. Now, architecture is sometimes called frozen music, or it's considered very static, that you make a building and it sits there forever. We thought, let's create a building which has mobility, which changes its look and feel. And while we wanted to demonstrate the beauty of India and the local resource that we have of stones and materials like terracotta, so adapting that color palette, we ended up creating a facade, which is actually a series of these elements which come together, much like India is about. We are very diverse. as a nation, from northeast to south to north to east, west. Everywhere there, it's a different culture. People look different. Everything about that region is different. Yet we are one nation. So how do we bring these simple, small elements, which could look different, which could turn different, which could behave different, and yet it was one harmonious facade? And that's what we have done to it, that we created a kinetic facade, which starts looking like this. So it keeps changing its look and feel as the sun moves or as the functionality of the building demands. And not only does it keep changing based on the orientation of the sun, but here, as you see, it becomes a backdrop for something where we can show innumerable facets of India. With digital mapping and projection mapping on the facade, we are able to show different facets of India, different regions, different customs, etc., etc. So because the expo is spanning over 26 weeks, and the Indian government has allotted different weeks to different parts of the country or to different states. So whichever state, if it's a West Bengal week or if it's a Madhya Pradesh week, that time you can depict the culture, the beauty, the architectural and natural beauty, tourism of that particular state on this facade. So the facade allows you to keep changing things. And also, very importantly, when we were asked as architects to design this building, it was about being told that it will be a permanent building after the expo ends, but what it will be used for is not clear at all. So we did not know that tomorrow will this building have a library or a museum which needs less light going into the space, or it will be an office building which needs regular amount of amount of light going in, or it could be retail which needs lots of glass. So therefore, we decided a facade which allows it to be changing the amount of, just by its twisting or rotating facade, you can change how much light goes into each floor of the pavilion. So the idea here has been that whatever we design, and even if a client wants a box because they want to build the maximum area, there is still immense possibilities for us to be sensitive to our climate, first of all, and aesthetics follows. Aesthetics cannot be the only driver. Good aesthetics is about good, responsible architecture. And for me, good, responsible architecture is about looking at the environment around us and not damaging the environment. And if this kind of an approach, in the immense talent that we have in India amongst Indian architects and designers, if this thought process can unite us, that we will build only with the environment and not at the cost of environment, I think we will be making our little contribution towards mitigating climate change. So thank you very much. And I look forward to any questions that might be there.
Thanks, Architect Kukreja. Those were some very interesting points you highlighted. Yes, climate change is a reality. And as you said, we have to design with the nature, not against it, not, harming the nature. Mr. Yadav, you had been listening to the presentation. How do you connect with what, Architect Kukreja just presented?
I think very enlightening presentation, the way he built it up, citing the environment change which is happening and how it is impacting our lives. That brings the perspective that, every individual, every community, and even the policy makers, they need to really wake up and, look at what they can do to preserve the environment. And, if we move towards the responsibility of, people like designers or, organizations like us, which are manufacturers, definitely it is, very important. On the point of, what a manufacturer can bring to table, it not just starts from the products or solutions that we give. Our factories where we produce these products, how responsibly we are behaving there. Okay, so we felt that as an organization, Havells felt that it is their responsibility to work on in our factories, then how they can become carbon neutral, water positive, wood positive. So we've worked on those areas, and happy to share that this is, I think, the third year in running that globally in our industry, in the electrical industry, Havells is amongst the few companies which are recognized by the Dow Jones Sustainability Index, and we rank there in amongst the top in our industry. So, I mean, from manufacturer perspective, that I wanted to share on this platform, I would, ask you, Sapna, to maybe probe more Architect Kukreja on the topics today, which are more relevant. From my side, if I have to start, I think he touched upon, variety of things, right from usage of light, usage of water, natural elements, so that the energy resources are utilized less and less. In terms of technology, if it is to be used, what kind of technologies would you or you use in creating buildings which help buildings become more sustainable over a long period of time, and they utilize less and less of carbon footprint?
So I think technology is a word which we need to understand is more intrinsic to our lives than probably, anything else that one can think of. I would even go on to say, just the way we need air to breathe and water to drink and survive, the same way today technology has gained literally that kind of significance in our lives. So when we look at designing also, I feel that it is something that the world of technology is in every aspect of what a designer needs to do. Not only the way we design and the way we can artificially simulate and create an environment before physically it actually gets built. Not only in that aspect of design process is technology coming in, but in other facets, like whether it has to do with materials or whether it has to do with the construction mechanisms. In each of these aspects, and I would go on to say that even post-construction, how the building is actually running or being operated. So everywhere, technology is an intrinsic part. So I would be more specific by saying that we need to only understand that we need to be kept abreast with the new technological advancements that keep happening in space. If we tend to ignore that for whatever reason, sometimes adopting change is difficult or is painful, and therefore we don't want to look at new technologies. If we do those kind of things, then I think somewhere we are not harnessing the best that can come our way. But technology is, like I'm repeating, an intrinsic part of our lives. So, whether it is cooling of buildings, or whether it's heating of buildings, or whether it's about the water systems, or whether it's about the amount of energy inside, security systems, the kind of air quality, all aspects of a building, the textural quality of a building, every aspect is where technology plays a significant role.
But Architect Kukreja, sometimes architects are also accused of being over-dependent on technology. So where it is not required, still, we see in India also glass towers where we do not require them. What do you have to say? Are we guilty of using technology, overusing technology?
Well, I would not be sure to whether I would put it in terms of being guilty. I would actually go stronger and say that it's more irresponsible on our part that, we are, because like I said, technology is just the way, you can't ignore it. You don't have to run away from it, just the way we cannot run away from air and water. Same way, I feel adopting technology doesn't mean that we need to become irresponsible. In fact, technology is such that if we harness it well, we are able to enhance our discipline. I'll be more specific through an example. If we are designing a building, and whether you mentioned about using glass there, and therefore you think that, the architect is relying on technology, I would say that using glass where it was not meant to be used is not relying on technology. It's actually being irresponsible in a sense. Where technology should have been used by the same approach is that you would look at, how you control the amount of light and glare and heat that comes into the building, and utilize the power of technology to be able to do that. And it could still be with a modern material. It could be glass, it could be steel, it could be any other modern material that is there. So why thinking that we design stone buildings like a Fatehpur Sikri is responsible architecture and doing glass is irresponsible? I don't think that way. I feel using technology the right way, or understanding technology and its potential the right way, is what we need to be really. If we take care of that, then how you use glass, how much you use glass becomes the second factor.
So understanding the technology, understanding the material, and then, what materials to use, what technology to use, and how to use. Most importantly, how to use in a responsible way is what Architect Kukreja is saying. Mr. Yadav, we saw in Architect Kukreja's presentation about natural lighting, how he had used natural lighting with the use of jali and, have a diffuse lighting. Similar way, automation and sensors have become very important in controlling the artificial light, the lux of artificial light within the buildings, and also natural lighting, as Architect Kukreja mentioned. So how do you see, these products, their, in future projects, how we are going to see their placements going forward?
I would say that, today when we interact with, consultants and architects, this is becoming a norm, and every building, they try and use this, because the principal objective behind choosing such products and solutions is simple. I mean, they want to conserve energy, use less and less of power for lighting, for air conditioning, which is the major load in any building. So they are becoming more popular, and solutions are being demanded which are easy to install, easy to manage, easy to operate, and easy to maintain. So sensors is one such area which is very simple product, and the way the spaces are being created today, they're becoming an integral part of the design. The other area is designing the perfect lighting system. Today, the fixtures, the lighting, electronics is becoming so advanced that we are, every time we are demanding more light output per watt spent. There were times when, lighting, there were many parameters which were, asked by the designers. But today, the number one parameter on which they work is what is the lumen output per watt. Okay, so it's the ask language from the designers has changed. So I think everyone is becoming very much aware that the building is coming down, but also the operating expenses in a building are going down continuously. So, buildings, I often say that, buildings globally constitute almost 50% of the energy which is consumed by everyone. So it is responsibility of designers, responsibility of manufacturers to continuously work on products and solutions which consume less and give more.
That's right. And this is the, what this entire platform is all about, to bring the designers, manufacturers, the end users, everyone together to understand how we can work together and, work towards a common goal of creating buildings that are healthy, that are smarter. Architect Kukreja, we are hearing a lot about IoT connected buildings, IoT connected smart cities. That is the future, how India is going to be. What are your views on that? How is IoT connected cities the future?
No, I mean, why just India? I think the world over will embrace this, because like I said, this is again another example that, technology today has brought us to this point. I'm sure 10 years from now, IoT would be something literally, part and parcel, and nothing so unique about it. It would have become one of those aspects which has already got absorbed into our daily lives, and we would be probably, advancing into new frontiers. Like I believe that, so far civilization has been looking at land as where we can inhabit ourselves. But I think going forward, times will come where we will also be exploring that how we can actually live above land and we can live in the air. We'll create whatever it might be, recreation spaces and experiential encounters, and also water. We are already beginning to do that. Land reclamation or building on water is already something. Latter part of 20th century and now 21st century examples have started coming up around the world. But it will get more and more advanced out there. So I feel, yes, to answer you, IoT is one of those things which will be embraced. But I see technology going even far beyond that. Because if you see the technology graph, it's literally going up steeper and steeper. We are inventing and creating more and more things faster than ever before. All the more reason that as designers, we look at these things not with a sense of awe, but with a sense of responsibility. Because what Mr. Yadav just mentioned, I agree with him. And I keep talking about this, that, we must understand that it's not just about the CapEx, or when we look at budgets, when buildings are made, where people only talk about the capital cost of the building. And we start cutting corners because we feel, that's all that we can afford. But what is this concept of affordability? Is it the immediate affordability? Because we are investing in something which is going to last or live on this planet beyond even what we will live, beyond our own individual lifetimes. And yet we talk about the capital cost and we forget that that same building, if not designed properly, can end up having such a huge operational expense year after year. So these are concepts when I talk about responsible designing and a responsible outlook, which I was saying every citizen needs to have. These are the aspects that we need to change our mindset. When I talk to many clients, I find it surprising when some of them only react to CapEx as if there is no tomorrow to that building. So these are aspects of responsibility, which will also have an effect, obviously, on improving our climate, which we are talking about today, about the aspect of climate change.
But I think this pandemic has taught us many lessons. It has kind of helped change our mindsets in a drastic way. Technology has accelerated in all our parts of life. In design, how do you envisage the building design and architecture change because of this pandemic, with the changing in the mindset and our lifestyle? Do you see the design and architecture also changing going forward?
Yes, of course. I think it is changing on many fronts. Whether it is our human psychology, so many people that one talks to, I'm sure you would also be facing that, our perspective towards life has changed. Our perspective towards quality of life has changed. So that is the psychological level. And of course, architecture can never be disassociated from human psychology. It's what we believe in, what we yearn for, what we believe our cities or our houses or our offices or our quality of life should be. That's what then architects design as buildings for us. So I feel that the pandemic has taught us many aspects, both at the aspect of how we need to really live and we should be living in future, and the aspect of how our physical spaces or our built environment should be. So whether people want to now go to the hills or want to do work from home or remote living, and how that affects, the planning of a house because you need an additional room or work from home. These are all actually derivatives out of a bigger picture, which I certainly believe that the pandemic has taught us. And that is about looking at life in a very different manner.
That's correct. Talking about technologies, which are the technologies that you feel are going to be at the forefront of design and construction?
I think that's literally like crystal gazing and looking into the future, which
maybe the top two technologies.
No, but certainly I feel that what is going to happen is that we will be looking at how we can use technology to, at the moment, I think in the last 50 years, world over, technology, we are still mesmerized or romancing with technology, where we feel we are able to create things virtually at the cost of physical. Today, for example, we are having this conversation. We've discovered this during the pandemic that, we can do interactions not just, in physical platforms of halls, but we can actually do it like this, and audiences could be anywhere in the world. So technology has taught us this whole world of virtual living. I think going forward, what technology is going to do is it is going to bring in a sense of that physical aspect, which we are missing. Right now, the aspect of being able to sit in front of each other, there is a charm to it. There is a value to it. Even meetings, business meetings which happen, there is a benefit of physical presence. We can save on commuting time and pollution or taking flights and all of that, but there is still something getting missed out. I think technology in the future will allow us to bridge that, what we are missing, and bring it into this virtual world of ours.
Okay, fantastic. Mr. Yadav, what do you have to add to that? The virtual and the physical, the meeting of both probably we are going to see going forward.
No, I think it's going to be a good mix. We are already seeing that, the physical activity though has started, but the virtual part also still remains. And there are many benefits that everyone has seen of, the virtual world. The virtual meetings literally have taught, what time discipline is to everyone. We never, used to start our meetings with our customers or our own meetings in time. They are starting in time. So I think this is here to stay. And I would wish that, these practices that we have learned during this period, they stay with us for a longer period of time. And we don't forget all the lessons which are there from this, difficult time. We are still undergoing difficult time. It's not yet past, but these practices we, keep with us and, take them, even if, the world becomes, physical. But I do believe in the interest of efficiency, in the interest of, high productivity, the mix of, virtual world and physical world, they should coexist and continue. The physical meetings, the physical, exhibitions, all those still can happen. But if some part of it which was extravagant can go away and can be done with virtual meetings, it will not just save time, effort, and money for people, but it also help the environment to flourish.
That's right. One thing we can agree is that this pandemic has been good for our planet, at least, good for our nature. Delhi saw for the first time the pollution levels going so much down and, so much clearer skies. While we wrap up our session today, one last question to Architect Kukreja is, what is that one design mantra that you would like to share with everyone, especially the young architects?
So I would just say that, as architects, we are in a fabulous profession, a profession which gives us lots to do, lots to contribute towards society. And it's also a very exciting profession. All of that comes with a sense of responsibility. So my message would be that within this thrilling profession that we have a lot of responsibility towards what I today believe is our own very existence, which is, dealing with the issue of climate change. So I will leave a simple message that let's learn to build, but build with our environment. We should not be building at the cost of, our natural environment.
Yes, build with the environment, not at the cost of the environment, because we do not have a planet B. So thank you so much for taking those questions and sharing those wonderful insights. Thanks to both our speakers. Let me now invite Mr. Remel Behel, Head for Enterprise Business, Havells India Limited, to give the thank you note of the day. In fact, he's the Head for Enterprise Business and engages with architects, consultants, interior designers, industry, government, infrastructure, and key commercial project stakeholders. And he's here with us. He was listening to the entire discussion and the presentation. Mr. Behel, what do you have to say?
Thanks, Sapna. Good afternoon, all. I think it was a fabulous presentation by architect Dikshu Kukreja. And on behalf of Havells, I think it's an honor and a privilege for me to propose a vote of thanks for our honored guest. Really, your focus has been on sustainability and a lifestyle which is conducive for the environment in today's discussion. And I believe, your emphasis on finding solutions to climate change, overcrowding, pollution, flooding, drought really set the tone for the discussion. You've really had a vast experience on working with various prestigious projects, which I believe are combining art, health, buildability, and science into the projects, And you've shared a few examples with us of the same, like the ones of New York and Thames. And you've shared a few of your iconic projects like Gautam Buddha University and the work that you're doing currently at the East Delhi hub at Karkardurma. And of course, the, again, iconic project of India Pavilion at Dubai. Each one of your projects, I believe, has been an opportunity to create an experience for everyone. And we at Havells are also committed to providing energy efficient electrical products and solutions for such world-class projects, which push the boundaries of architecture and technology. I really personally liked your concept of the Kinetic Facade in your Dubai Expo project. And, I could sync with your, urgent need to save our environment and have solutions which are sustainable and, which provide mobility and opportunity. So we at Havells believe in working in close collaboration with our clients, partners, and stakeholders to achieve a successful and sustainable outcome. I would like to thank all the honorable participants who have taken time out for participating in this ADEX series. And I would also like to thank the organizing team. Thank you so much and have a great day ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Bahel, for summarizing the session and expressing that note of appreciation and sincere thanks on behalf of Realty Plus and Havells India. Thanks, Mr. Vivek Yadav, as well, for being part of this session and sharing your views as a solution provider. And let me once again thank our speaker of the day, Architect Dikshu C. Kukreja, Managing Principal, Architect CP Kukreja Architects, for sharing his knowledge with the design fraternity. And most of all, our sincere thanks to our awesome audience for being here, sharing their time, sending in their questions. So thank you, everyone. Thanks, Mr. Yadav. Thanks, Mr. Bahel. And thanks, Architect Kukreja, for being here with us today. And thanks to our audience. Do keep watching this space as we bring to you yet another acclaimed design expert. But till then, thanks and goodbye.